Hello everyone, welcome to a new update. I wanted to initially wait until the new all-time highs, which I believe will eventually come. It's not a matter of if, but when, in my opinion. So I wanted to wait until then to make the update, but I see that emotions are getting a little bit higher right now, which is somehow expected because we are fighting very strong levels. I mean, high time frame resistance, of course, because it's the current all-time high. So it's obvious that people are confused or even afraid. But let me ask you something: is this the kind of sentiment you see when everything looks overheated, right? Instead of being positive, euphoric even, because we are about to cross the all-time high, people are in complete disbelief yet, mostly because they are in altcoins or because they see these constant daily rejections and wicks, and it's we're shrinking from we are back and it's over like pretty much every day if you get glued to low time frame. And in my opinion, that's the recipe for disaster. I've already said that, and I will repeat it again. Many will probably sell early because of that. Most will just get complacent and think, okay, we are safe right when we are way higher, and things should warn you about exiting, right? But that's the moment people think we are finally back, and that's the time to start a new leg. I've been reading about that for weeks now, and many people still think that the bull run hasn't even started simply because they are in altcoins, and altcoins apparently haven't done much, but data says otherwise. So let's take a look at the BTC chart. This is the daily chart, my main chart here. And what we can see is we've had the highest daily close ever for Bitcoin. Remember this, I posted this last level around 106K because it was the highest it had ever, let's say, tapped, because there was just wicks, right? Not a close above it. So far we are still above it. Right now we are retracing these attempts to attack new all-time high. I mean, it's all good so far, nothing to worry about yet, in my opinion. Some people might say this is a various divergence that we should bear in mind, but I pointed out that to me this is not something meaningful yet, because this push in RSI was with this liquidation candle that then immediately came back down. So we could say that if we eliminate this, the RSI would be slowly climbing as price is. You could say, yes, it's a divergence here. I don't think it is important now, at least yet, and I will show you why with the open interest. So I still think this is good. If we go to the weekly, here we can see the kind of hesitation candle yet when we are getting close to the all-time high, but you can see where we bounced from again, pretty much like previous week. I think these are very bullish wicks, right? If we see some kind of wicks like this, then I will start worrying about it. But as I pointed out in a different post, remember here the all-time high was rejected perfectly with an ugly looking candle, right? But it's still above the MA, and this was just the expected reaction, right? Shorters piling in, and we needed bulls to really make this push strong enough to break all-time high, and this is when perp starts chasing, which is something we're going to see in the next chart. So far RSI is just cooling off a little bit after this breakout, a little bit of a cool off here, 95K, which again was an expected shorting area, but it wasn't strong enough to even pull back to 1992, and off we went to on our way to all-time highs. Something similar is happening now. So stock RSI, as I said, still entering now perhaps the most overheated area, which, by the way, something that happened the week we crossed the previous all-time high, so still nothing to worry about. RSI is the most important indicator of the two. And if we go to this weekly chart for BTC, I want to show you the importance of the aggregate funding, right? The longs and shorts open in the market right now. So if we take a look at the previous all-time high here, this was the week to the all-time high, right? We saw that when we were still climbing with some doubts above the MA, the funding rate was still kind of flat, right? It was when we broke the all-time high that perps started to chase, right? And we saw that was the moment above 70 RSI, right? When things got overheated. This is the place. It was around November to mid-December, one whole month, when we had this big push, right? Which, by the way, coincided. Let me show the daily chart. Sorry, but my voice is not very good today. So that was when here, mid-November, perps started chasing, and that's when we started getting overheated daily levels. And then in late November, like 10 days later, we printed the first bearish divergence at very overheated levels, right? It wasn't the end yet, but there was some chop that eventually marked the exhaustion of the leg, right? That's something I haven't seen yet, which is why I'm not really paying attention to this potential divergence yet. I will keep an eye on it, but not really. I don't think it's really that important yet. We might see a pullback down to 102 again for more liquidity, for more confirmation that yes, this high time frame level has been reclaimed, the same way we had that pullback here after testing the previous all-time high, which in my opinion was a bear trap, right? We even printed a bullish divergence on the daily. I fully reset. So still good. So when we see perps really chasing, we can see that in previous situations, like here when we broke this dead cat bounce level, again initial rejection, right? Then when we broke above it, it's when perps start chasing again above the 70 RSI. How high, we don't know. We will pay attention to the daily. Back then we even got to 87 RSI. Okay, we can see the bearish divergence even on the weekly, and perps rising, right? That's another bearish divergence getting rejected twice here, while perps were still chasing and piling in. If we go to 2021, pretty much the same story. We break the all-time high here, chasing, right? Fighting and retesting, and perps start chasing. The pullback cooled them off completely, and when we broke again, perps started going crazy. All this was above the 70 RSI, bearish divergence on the weekly. This would be the perfect scenario, right? But remember that even in that weekly bearish divergence, you might see that this is easy or the best. Yes, but you have to go through 34% correction here for BTC in this case, and for alts where it was like 50 or 60%. Because within this weekly overheated candle, there was a daily divergence that ended up in this pullback. And back here, we didn't know if it was over yet or not, right? So we don't always need to see another push like we did here. In fact, we didn't here in December. It was just a daily candle, daily divergence, with not a very, very overheated weekly, and then we rolled over, right? So perps is something that normally happen. They chase when we break all-time high. That's why we still live in that, let's say, disbelief phase. Perps are not really chasing because there's still hesitation about breaking all-time high or not. And when the time it breaks, for most people, let's say inexperienced people, that's when confirmation comes, right? For them, price going up is the only thing they need to believe that we are back, right? They are bullish at resistance, bearish at support. That's something that always happens. That's why liquidation happens in both sides, and both at resistance and support, right? So I'm still confident that we are good. If we take a look at total 3, this first one, we can see that the daily is still chopping, getting pretty much completely reset compared to the previous run, right? We had these kind of rounded top, so to speak, around the previous resistance level, but we made a high low, which is the key now. High low, which was, again, as I said many times, about the March 24 top, right? And now we broke above the 845, I think it is, the level I mentioned, got rejected where we expected with a small bearish divergence in the daily. And we pulled back and we are holding this level for now. Yes, we could retrace a little bit again, even down to 845.50 and make another like a double bottom and push again, right? It's possible, but I think this is a development that it's very similar to the previous one. High highs, higher lows, high high, higher low. There's nothing to worry about this, in my opinion. If we go to the weekly, we can see, I'm going to remove this for a second. We can see that it was perfectly rejected. It held, it was rejected again, right? The market tried to push it back down, but it bounced from there. And RSI wise, we're still above the MA, right? And I said, even if we retrace completely and retest the MA, perhaps let's say next week we pull back down like we did here, it could all be a retest, right? Flattening a little bit of the stock RSI, and then when everything is ready, off we go, right? So I don't think there's nothing wrong with this. We just have to wait. If we take a look at BTC dominance, I posted yesterday, this is the huge range. BTC dominance. I still find it difficult or hard to believe that we will see such a big move up to 73 or something. But who knows? This is crypto. I still believe this Fibonacci level, even though we cross a little bit above it, I think this is still the strongest level. And this cluster, this area, is the key for BTC dominance. The moment it loses it, which by the way coincides with this Fibonacci level, before that, the 200, which is right now the moving averages are around 60, 61. Those are the keys. We want to see this Fibonacci hopefully holding as resistance now after breaking it, and turn this support, let me remove this support after breaking this, turn it into resistance, and then test this new low again, perhaps finally break it, right? If we take a look at the weekly, we see the story so far is still similar to Q4. We had the first rollover pretty much at the same RSI level, right here. And then we had this, even a fake above, the bearish retest from the MA. This week's, as I said, the last video trapped many people thinking that BTC will keep outperforming. And that's when BTC was just retesting variously the MA and drop down. We could be doing the same thing now, getting rejected here, which perfectly coincides with the rejection of the MA. Yes, we are dangerously, so to speak, close to it. But as long as it holds, even if it's just a wick above, it would close below and would still be a lower high. The only thing that I'm a bit worried about, and that's why I said recently, I think it was on Sunday, that I wanted to see a move soon, which by the way we've had. I posted that when it was around 102k, was because USDT was showing more strength in this intermediate level than I expected. First of all, this is the weekly, right? This is now one of my main USDT dominance charts. And this is the weekly. The weekly, both last candles look heavy, even though they have bounce from this intermediate level, which was expected, right? Here, after the trend reversed, it was resistance, of course, but it also showed the strength for continuation. Here, they are showing support in the downtrend, but inversely showing resistance, right? The only thing I don't really like about this is the stock RSI, right? Because it's getting close to the, almost in the fully reset area, very oversold area, although it can stay here. We can see that here it was entering as well, and it broke and it stayed here for a month, right? With RSI completely rolling over. But I don't really like this flattening of the RSI. I want to see the weekly, hopefully, even though it's Wednesday, it doesn't have to happen this week, okay? But it would give me more confidence if we saw 4.5% being retested again, and possibly starting to break below, and potentially turn it into resistance, right? That's something I would really like to see soon. I'm gonna change it to white because I don't really like that it's holding this area. I said in one of the potential paths, which is one I didn't like, and perhaps now we are getting close to it. I said that what if this intermediate target holds, which could coincide with BTC getting close to all-time high, which is something we are doing now. Sorry, I got lost for a second here. And BTC getting close to all-time high, this intermediate level holds, and we bounce back up. And all this is just a high low for USDT, and the cycle is over. Or probably over if we break again and clearly make a higher high as well. So this is a key level. It's getting more important than I initially thought. If we go to the daily, we can see that yes, it started looking heavy. I think it was the crowd, one of our followers, that pointed out this bear flag, which by the way I didn't really see because I wasn't really paying attention to these small moves. But he was right that these were the flags within this downtrend. But even though that's true, which is positive for us, still holding and reacting from this level, which by the way, it makes sense as long as BTC finds resistance, right? It's not something unusual because we are getting close to very important levels like 450 on all-time high, for BTC. But I want to see this roll over soon, right? I don't want it to extend too much around this area. And considering how the weekly is shaping in terms of overheating, this reinforces one of the two scenarios that I pointed out recently. I think it was yesterday, which is USDT breaks but holds 3.73 again. We are not having much time in terms of overheating, oversold levels. So that reinforces the idea of finding a local top again here, right? In that case, BTC would climb to, let me remove this and add the Fibonacci extensions, which is something I have already shown. BTC would climb to 1382, right? Sorry, this is not the Fibonacci extension. I wanted to make the previous local top. Yes, that's the one that I measured. So we are obviously struggling and fighting the 1, 2, 3 pip extension, and BTC could run next to the 138, which is the next Fibonacci level, to 134k, and then that's when in the daily we might start printing a bearish divergence, right? That could coincide with perps chasing the same way we saw in the previous leg, right? So imagine we do something like that. We start chopping, we get to 134, start chopping, and then we roll over, right? With this making various divergence here, right? If we see USDT getting close here and perhaps showing real strength like here, at oversold levels, even perhaps a bullish divergence in the daily, which is something we saw different situations here, double bottom while RSI was climbing, it's getting strong. If we see something like that, perhaps that's the sign for a local top. Together with BTC dominance, perhaps retracing as much as this 61-60% area, which would be like the total, like the 200-day moving averages without breaking them, right? So we have this rejection here, we rolled over, we print a similar move to Q4, right? We come back here, but this support holds, and we bounce again. That would mean that in the monthly, at most, we retest again the MA, but we don't break it yet. So the true old season might not happen yet, and could start a new correction weekly cycle into summer. Perhaps we have the final push in Q4 when BTC dominance finally breaks, when USDT perhaps retests from here but gets rejected here, and then we completely roll over, right? And this is just another lower high and potentially lower low, but that would require a correction in between, a retracement for BTC, this Fibonacci level perhaps to all-time high, right? Even some weeks below. And then we have our final push into the 160, 1.6 in Q4. That could be a possibility. We are not having rate cuts, in my opinion, in the next meetings. There's still doubts around tariffs because the negotiations are still going back and forth. Perhaps, as I said, SPX just goes slightly above all-time high, but with all this hesitation, there's not enough confidence to really push it into some kind of blow of top move or new price discovery with strength. And that coincides with BTC topping here locally, perhaps, because the weekly wouldn't get really overheated. Perhaps we get again to this 70 something area and we don't enter the final euphoria kind of push that goes beyond 80, right? Like 87 here, 84 or 94 like in 2021 or 91 like previous cycle, like in 2017. So for now, I'm not into predictions because we have seen crypto turns things around very quickly. But that scenario so far, with everything I'm seeing, it's likely, right? Because I'm seeing a little bit of strength from USDT, perhaps some doubts. Who knows, by the time we break all-time high, this completely rolls over. And all the sideline people start allocating and chasing with perps, and yes, we see the final rollover to 373. I have to remind you that a drop from 4.6 to such levels is huge. Even though it doesn't perhaps look like much, it is a big drop, right? And I believe we are not still in the full rollover kind of move. However, the monthly says that we might break the MA for USDT, right? It was really overheated, as overheated as pretty much the top of for this bull market for USDT or bear market for crypto. Remember, these are USDT is inversely correlated to BTC and crypto in general, right? So this is something confusing. That's why I don't have all the clear signs to believe one path is very likely or not. I still believe that that potential smaller weekly cycle like we saw in Q4 is very likely, but not the most likely and almost certain, that's for sure, because we could still print this fake out below the MA like we did here, testing this. But when we did that last time, it wasn't really overheated, but now it is. Right? And the moment it broke here, yes, it was toying around here, right? Even getting reset, but still below the MA, unable to break. And this was in 2023 when the confirmation that, okay, this is a complete rollover, right? And it's something we saw from 2023 down to March 24, right? That was when the market really ran hot. So we don't know. I still don't have enough data for that, but I want to present you the two most likely scenarios, in my opinion, for the next weeks. I mean, perhaps until, I don't like to try to time things, but considering how long the weekly cycles normally take, right? Let's say this was the new weekly cycle here in October, was like 2 months until December. You could argue that this was in January until March, again around 2 months. If we say this is the new weekly cycle, again, this was like 100 days, right? I mean, I could measure it from the bottom to the top, and it's about 3 months if we measure from the very start or bottom area. And if we do the same thing now, 3 months would be like June. I think it's too early, but who knows? We might start running soon, and in 2 weeks get into this area with altcoins running as well, perhaps just 1 more week or something like that. And then we have a failed weekly cycle. Perhaps we retest the MA in summer, and then we have the last impulse. This is just pure speculation. I think it's pointless, right? All I see, positively speaking, is that Total 3 looks good so far as long as this level holds. The USDT is threatening to hold this, but again is showing weakness, so I believe we need to break 4.5 for more confluence and confidence that the move to 373 is loading. BTC dominance could still chop around, even push back again. I don't want to see a higher high, right? So it needs to close below 65.3, ideally below 64.23, which is this Fibonacci level. And BTC, of course, has to break the all-time high. I think it's just a matter of time. Again, there's nothing wrong yet, but there's some warning signs about the strength of this potential leg. Again, this could all turn around the moment key levels break, right? All-time high, 60 something for BTC dominance, 61.60, right? And the same for USDT. Total 3 is very close to new all-time high, and I'm going to show you the 200-day moving averages, because I posted yesterday that the relationship between BTC dominance and Total 3 on the 200 moving averages is very interesting. First of all, let me show you this. I'm going to hide BTC dominance for a second. This is the whole Total 3 chart. And let's go back to 2020, right? 2020, it was toying around with reclaiming the 200. This is the bear market, the first leg, getting rejected, like chopping completely. This is the accumulation area, going above and below, above and below. And it was slightly reclaimed here in May 2020, right? People said it was dead until it crossed the previous all-time high here, right? This was the previous all-time high. I'm gonna I'm gonna draw this line. This was the complete explosion, breaking the previous all-time high. This cycle, it's been toying around with again up and down. This was the accumulation area, similar to this, but less explosive. And it reclaimed it, and it pushed way above the 200-day moving averages into the top in March. It then came summer, again chopping around a reaccumulation, and we broke explosively above the 200 until December. Remember, every time we get very separated, so to speak, from the 200, that's the expansion move, and at the same time, one to be careful about, right? Here in 2020, it was a big explosion. In summer, we retested it and we had another impulse, and the moment we broke them, it rejected the bear market, was confirmed. And what are we doing now? So far, total 3. I'm going to use now the typical candles, has broken above the lower band of the 200, held support, which was around 820, something like that, broke above the second one, and it's fighting to hold it around 880 currently. This could be a launchpad. I said that for BTC when it was around 84. I don't know if you remember that. I will show you later. And this is very similar to this situation. Rejected, but hold. Rejected again, fake out, but holding until it finally gives up, and off we go. And I said this pullback here in early November was the trap to make people believe that the altcoins weren't really running, that this was the BTC only cycle, right? And off we went. We are doing the same thing now, silently reclaiming, while everyone just pay attention to the particular coin, and perhaps that coin is doing shit or not, and that's how they see the market positively or not. If you're in a microcap, you might be really worried because it's being underperforming, but if you are, let's say in XRP, you're so comfortable, very close to all-time high, while the market is getting ready for another push. So you are very positive about the altcoin market. It doesn't have to be that way. You cannot be positive or negative only based on your particular coin, even though that's your bet, but you have to bet on the whole market. We know how altcoins work, right? So I see this is a reclaim higher highs and higher lows. And if we open BTC dominance, this is something I pointed out. BTC dominance so far, it's making a lower high, while total 3 is making a high low, right? So this could be a retracement into resistance, this could be a retracement into support, and off we go, and they inversely push. Seriously, bear that in mind. The moment we had this pullback here, BTC dominance was still pushing, but then chopped a little bit, but total 3 was already pushing after this drop, right? So this drop from BTC dominance allowed the total 3 to break about the 200. Now it is BTC dominance is pushing again. Total 3 is retesting the 200, getting ready for another leg unless we lose it. Unless we lose this. If we lose this 200, we will also lose the 845 level, right? Because that would take us to 820, something like that. It wouldn't be really strong, but talking about the 200, we could even retest the lower band and still be bullish as we were here. This was 2023. We stayed below, accumulating, right? And when we broke above the 200, we really pushed higher. Same thing in 2020. Silently recovering it. BTC dominance chopping, apparently making a higher high, but it made a lower high, while total 3 was, look at this here, reclaiming and staying strong above for the first time, above the 200. This was June. Yes, we needed a few more months until breaking the all-time high, which, by the way, in this situation, let me use the price range. When we were reclaiming this, total 3 was still needing like a 5x to go back to previous all-time high. Or, in other words, it was still like 84% below the all-time high. Right now, it is 23%, or just pretty much the same kind of move to reach all-time high, like a 30% move. Please, 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 let's bear that in mind. That's why I said, why are we even worrying about this? We are so close to all-time high while BTC dominance hasn't really rolled over completely yet. So you can't say, technically and data-wise, that altcoins are doing bad this cycle. BTC dominance keeps going up, right? And only when it started rolling over, right? Even at the beginning, the total 3 was also rolling over here the last cycle. So it first needs to reclaim the 200. And even then, BTC dominance was rolling over and this was no strength from total 3. Right now, BTC dominance still climbing and total 3 doing as well. Just think about that. Seriously. Think about that, because all I see... sorry, I didn't want to hide this. All I see this cycle is from the very bottom, right? From the breakout here after the whole accumulation, all the altcoins have been doing is higher highs and higher lows. Perhaps not your particular coin, but the whole market is. And once this explodes to the upside, what do you think will happen to the whole market? Right? The first higher high here and higher low, the total 3 came very late compared to this cycle, right? It was lower high, sorry, lower low, lower high, lower low. This is when we broke the structure and it looked good to go, right? Let's say we are here now, right? Let's say we are here because we're getting close to important levels. This is the previous all-time high. We are so far away from it. Sorry, that cycle we were so far away from it, but the structure was changing. We are very close to it now. What do you think that will happen when we break this? Perhaps we find initial rejection here. Of course, this is a key level. Every all-time high is a key level, but we are so close. Why do people really think this looks bad? Seriously. I mean, we stayed below a little bit from previous all-time high. We established this as our bottom for this cycle. Now we are pushing. Look at how slim this range is compared to the range we established between 2017 and 2018, right? Of course, it took longer to break, but look at this. This is way smaller, and it has going up since the very bottom. It didn't here. Right? We made a lower high and a lower low before turning around. And that's something that hasn't happened this cycle yet. That's why I'm very bullish for altcoins. I don't know how long it will take. I don't know if we will have a weekly cycle in between with another correction. Perhaps we break out the high, or we get rejected again here, but we print another high low at around 950, which is the level that I said we are going to test soon again. I don't know, but these high time frame wise, cycle wise, this doesn't look bearish at all. It looks like we might be in for a surprise, because all these pushes were strong, yes, we were followed by big corrections, yes, but it was all within like a climbing phase. So the moment we break all-time high, you know what might happen next. Same happened for BTC when we broke all-time high. We had this push, retracement, and now we are about to push again to break all-time high twice, while total 3 hasn't even broken above it once. I'm sure the narrative, the plebs piling in, the new headlines, and I don't know, whatever news you might see here to trap and to lure new players in will happen when we break this, right? It could be this new weekly cycle. I don't know, but I think this is shaping very, very good for perhaps the explosion in Q4, which would align with this reset here, retest, but support and then eventually breaking below, because I don't think that's strong enough. It is strong enough to breaking this next push, but I would be gladly be wrong if that happens. If otherwise we break it in the next weekly impulse. But again, this is the something people are, I think, ignoring. That's why the 200 is so important. We are reclaiming it. The last time we did, it was Q4, and the previous one, October 23. You know what came later. I'm not making this up. I'm not cherry picking. I'm going back to the last cycle because it is as far as I can go, pretty much, right? And you know what happens when it is reclaimed. The thing is, it takes time. This is where people lose their minds, or their particular coin retrace, because even the whole market pushes in tandem. There are particular time frames for every altcoin. Some push before than others, and people confuse that with strength or weakness. It's just their own like oscillator cycle, right? But it looks really, really good for altcoins. The thing is, I cannot pinpoint the time frame. I cannot be replying constantly when will it happen, because that's useless. Again, this is not the kind of channel and profile to tell you everything's going to be okay, because I would be trapping you and I would just farming engagement, and I don't really care about that, right? I'm not here to sell anything. I'm just trying to show what I think, what I see that perhaps might help you, right? And again, I'm not worried. It might take a little bit longer, but we have been climbing since the bottom. This is BTC again. We have been climbing despite all the fear and everything people try to say at every rejection level. And every time bears celebrate this rejection, you see the sentiment is still in the bearish side, in the disbelief side. When you see buy the fucking dip every time we see a retracement, even if it's a 20 or 30%, you see that as a huge opportunity, because you will never see those prices again. That's when you buy high and you end up back holding and round tripping, right? So I think we are still not in that phase, and we won't enter until all the high breaks, and that's when bearish divergences happen and perps chase. Like here, 2021, Q4, March. So until then, I think we just have to wait. I hope this video was useful, and I'll see you around perhaps at a new all-time high. See ya.